Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. We're live with Leon Starks. How are you, Leon?
Hey, pretty good, Sid. How about yourself, man?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. Where you at these days?
Hey, right now I'm in Cincinnati, man, just enjoying the time off the road. I don't know if you knew this or not, but if I were really working in my true capacity, I'm a trainer, and it requires that I'm on the road about 65 to 70% of the year. But because of the pandemic, I haven't traveled since the second week of March. So doesn't mean that I haven't been working. I
Right.
haven't been working. I've been doing a lot of webinars, man. But sometimes I just want to be out in front of the people, bruh. But everything's good. So I'm in Cincinnati right now.
Without a doubt. How does it feel to be working in such a different capacity as you are now?
Well, if it is not an ideal thing. Let me start with that.
Okay.
Ideally, I'm a person that is cut out to be right in front of the people. And I
Mhm.
know that because I've done it for so many years. But because I know my gift, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, because I know my gift and I know my talent and I know my strengths, even when I'm at home doing webinars, I'm still able to impact people. So while it's not an ideal situation, it still gives me an opportunity to promote my gift and still gives me an opportunity to impact people. And with that, that's what keeps me happy. That's what I live for day after day after day. So
Right.
I'm good. I kind of miss the airports. I kind
Right.
of miss eating out in restaurants, but all in all, it's good, bruh.
Right. Now, talk to me a little bit about where you're from. As early as we are in this conversation, I can already feel the energy coming off of you through the screen, and so your gift it goes without saying. And so, I want to know, how did you become as powerful as you are today? And let's start by figuring out, where are you from? Where did you grow up at?
Okay, well, I grew up in Evansville, Indiana. I'm the youngest of. I got to do some numbers real quick. I'm the youngest of four children.
Okay.
I grew up in a two-parent household.
Okay.
Every other sibling was born in this little town called Russellville, Kentucky, which is probably about 10,000 strong. I'm the
Wow.
last child. So my parents moved from Russellville. And the reason why they moved from Russellville is because my father was without a job. He came to Evansville, Indiana, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the fourth largest city in Evansville. It's about 117,000. It's about 13% Black.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's where I'm originally from. Just to give you an idea in terms of how much younger I am. So, I've got a brother that's still living that's 14 years older than me. I have a sister that's still living that's 16 years older than me. And then I
Wow.
have a brother that died about a year ago. Had he still been living, he would be 28 years older than me. So there's longevity in my family, brother. My
Right.
mother was 94 when she died. My father, however, was 72 when he died. Came from a
Okay.
two-family household. But just because I came from a two-family household, it was a middle-class household, because I was so much younger. That's the key.
Mhm.
I was so
Right.
much younger than my parents.
Right.
I was the one that was a little rebellious. I
Now, before you became rebellious, or even if you were born that way, because you probably from the very beginning had to figure out how to do some things for yourself, simply because of the age difference that you had when you were born. I just want a little bit more of a picture of, were you guys living like in a country type of area? Was it a rural type of area? Did you guys grow up running in the front yard and backyard, riding bikes and stuff like that?
Well, because I was so much younger. First of all, Evansville is not what I would call country. It's a small town. It's
Okay.
definitely not what I would call a country town.
Okay.
With it being about 13% Black, it did mean that for the most part, most of your African Americans lived in one area of town. So
Mhm.
consequently, most knew of a particular family. In other words, we knew of each other.
Right.
Most people knew my family because they were pretty prominent. And my sister was a school teacher. My brother worked as a lab tech at Alcoa. The other brother lived in Louisville. But the bottom line is, it's not a rural area. There were plenty of drugs that came through there and are still coming through there even today.
Right. And that's part of what I wanted to understand as well was, was this a fairy tale beginning? It's okay if it was, but I know that you also were born in an era where communities across America were being infiltrated with drugs, essentially. Is that true, or is that not the period of time we're talking about?
No, it's definitely true, and no, it's definitely not a fairy tale situation. Had I done what I should have done with my life in early stages, it possibly could have been prettier for me in the earlier stages of my life. But because I chose to rebel, then no, it ended up not being a pretty situation at all. So I didn't encounter a lot of racism, knew it was there. Didn't encounter a lot of being in and out of jail, even though I saw jail again twice, but it wasn't like I stuck up somebody or anything like that. But because of the choices that I made in the area where I was, it landed me in areas that I had no business being in.
Right.
And it landed me there for quite a while.
At what age did you start rebelling, or were you sort of just like this from the beginning?
Well, I'll say I probably started actively rebelling somewhere around 12 to 14. So like 8th grade, something like that. I had friends, some of which I'm really still close with today, that I admired, and they were doing things that I had not done yet. I would end up doing those things, which we'll get into a little bit later, but I hadn't started doing those yet, but I still admired being around them. Man, for an African-American brother or sister, the streets can have a big grip on you. The streets can pull you in. There's something, I can't speak for everybody. I'm not saying that this is true with everybody, but for me, the streets were attractive. I like seeing the brothers driving the cars. I liked seeing the brothers getting the girls and the brothers that were doing whatever they were doing. And I wanted to emulate their behavior.
Right.
Therefore, it caused a rebelliousness against my parents because my parents already knew the game. They were trying to tell me that's not where you're supposed to be.
Right.
But I didn't necessarily want to listen.
Right. Now you're off into a very strong discussion right now that I think needs to be had with our community that could provide a wake-up call. And before we get to that, I want to know, what are some of the things that your parents were teaching you that prepared you to understand right from wrong, so that you could clearly understand that you were rebelling? So like when you say, I know that I started rebelling at the age of 14, then that means that your parents were teaching you properly what was right and what was wrong. What are some of the things that your parents were teaching you?
Well, man, because my parents were so much older than me, and like I said, my mother died at 94, father at 72. They did not have the opportunities that their children had. So, for instance, my mother had an 8th grade education. My father had a 4th grade education. My mother was a domestic servant. My father kind of was a person that works in a house for a couple, for a husband and wife, presumably. They're going to be housekeeping. They're going to be doing that kind of thing. Okay, that's essentially what my mother and father did until they moved to Evansville. Because of their background, they stressed highly in education. They wanted to make sure that we got not only out of high school, but that we went on to college and that we finished our college education as well. That's all I heard from probably when I was like fifth grade. You got to get an education. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't have an education. So
Right.
the first part of my rebelliousness was to rebel against education.
Okay.
So probably in the 8th grade, I mean, my grades were not that great. By the time I got into high school, they got even worse. And my senior year, in order for me to get out of my senior year in high school, I had to go to night school. There was no reason that I should have gone to night school. I had the brain,
Right.
I had the smarts,
Right.
but because I didn't apply what I had, that's going to come up later.
Right.
Because I didn't apply what I had ended up having to go to night school, man, just to get out of high school.
Right.
I didn't make it into college. They kicked me out of IU in 1 year.
Right.
And this is how bad it was. The brother that's still living, he's kind of like the spokesman, the spokesperson of my family. So my mother and father told him to come back with me to IU in Bloomington to try to get me back reinstated into Bloomington. I had a black, I think it was called Black Movies or something like that. But the point is, my counselor looked at my transcript and she looked at me and said, there's no way that we're letting you back into IU because we're looking at this your transcript. And you got a C in black films. That was the name of the class.
Right.
And if you got a C in that class, that clearly shows us that you applied nothing.
Right.
You didn't even go to class. You must be majoring in partying.
Right.
That was the beginning of my rebelliousness right then.
Right.
I'd say probably the second thing in terms of where I began to show rebelliousness were the type of people that I chose to run with. Now, I'm not suggesting that I ran, with a bunch of thugs or a bunch of street people, but trust me, these were people that my mother and father definitely either knew about them or knew about their parents. And they warned me, these are not the people that you really want to be flowing with. And, me, again, the big cars, the dress, the way that they talked, the way that their flow was, that's what attracted me. That's the way I was going. And so that would probably be the two biggest areas that I chose to show rebelliousness. Not necessarily on purpose, but that's the way it played out.
Okay. And so as you can see on the screen here, we have a comment. Our streets have gravity. I would like for you to talk about your need to get out into the streets, your need to be outside. Probably every single day you felt the need to be outside in the streets. I think that millions of young people, young men and young women deal with this concept every single day, and we don't talk about it enough in our communities. I remember when I was just not too long ago, let's say 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I needed to be outside. I needed to be in what you call the streets. I needed to. Talk about how you can relate to that.
Well, man, as an African-American brother, I don't know how it is for the sisters, okay? Right now, I am going to take the voice of an African-American brother. You know the term, you can't be a chump on the playground. So you probably learned this maybe around 3rd grade. You may have learned it in your own family.
Right.
To be a chump on the playground or be a chump in your family means that anybody can come over and knock you over. That they can do anything that they want to. And if you ain't got a voice, if you're not going to man up, if you're not going to be bold, then you're just going to be a chump. So you better pick up a brick, you better pick up a stick, you better do something to make your voice heard, to make your presence known, even on the playground. You getting on the merry-go-round, somebody throw you off, you better pick up a rock or something and make your presence known.
Right.
So somebody tell you they're going to get you after school, you better not run home. As a matter of fact, back in them days, if you ran home, your mother and father probably run you back because you got to stand up for yourself. So that, to me, I saw that as being part of, at least part of the streets, being able to stand up for yourself, being able to outsmart and out-talk somebody else that was on the street, being able to cap on somebody. I don't know if y'all use them terms now or not, but being able to cap on somebody. Somebody say something about your mama, you better have something to come back with on their mama. The streets, and again, the whole thing of how you walked, how you talked, how you were respected. The streets, in my opinion, demand respect. They command respect. And so for me, the gravity, the pull, that's what I'm associating with gravity. The pull of the street for me was an attractive thing. And for me, if you could make it out in the streets, you could make it anywhere. To me, I've always felt that as African Americans, particularly as African American men, you got to be kind of bilingual in this country. Bilingual meaning you got to be able to talk street, and you got to be able to talk, if this is your thing, boardroom, if that's your thing.
Right.
You got, and so to me, that was the pull of the street, having the cachet to be able to talk to that sister that nobody else had the courage to talk to, that kind of thing, man. And it took you down some dark paths sometime, but still the street had its pull.
Right. I think that could even be considered one of our first major lessons that we have to realize about people in general, is that we are deeply attracted to one another. And the idea of, being out in the larger community and associating with dozens, if not hundreds of people is irresistible for a lot of people in our communities. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Right. And so,
absolutely.
And so we have to evaluate that as a reality, is that we find other people irresistible, and we need to find ways to assemble that end up being a positive influence on one another's lives and end up being a positive influence on our community. Because I don't think the YMCA alone can handle the fact that everybody wants to hang out with each other. I don't think that the high school parking lot alone can deal with the fact that we all want to be around each other. And so I think that we need to create facilities that facilitate us congregating. And that could look like a church, or it could look like something different than a church. But the fundamental reality, based on what you're saying, that young people are going to want to congregate, is something that we need to get out in front of in order to stop the spread of something as disgusting as drugs in our community.
Absolutely, man. And you can see that, I know that you're in New York. I know that you spent some time, if I'm not mistaken, in Columbus. Right now, I'm in Cincinnati, and it doesn't matter where you are. Like I said, I travel 70% of the year, and, I'm traveling all 50 states, sometimes outside of the country. There's a hood everywhere.
What's the hood?
There's a hood, meaning there's an area where you're going to see black folk, and then black folk are going to be congregating. Right. There are going to be some white hood citizens there as well, but primarily they're going to be some African Americans that are there, and they're going to have their spot. That spot may be a chosen restaurant, a chosen store, a chosen liquor store, or whatever, where they are congregating. And you know what the talk is probably going to be. You and I could probably fit in there after they got comfortable with us, after they found out that we weren't, a cop on the side or something like that. We could probably fit right in because the language is the same.
Right.
And if we're not using a certain term in New York or a certain term in Cincinnati, as soon as they spit out that term, we're going to know what they're talking about. Right. So the commonalities of all hoods, the commonalities of areas where largely African Americans assemble and meet, the commonalities are going to be the same. And if I had a strong family tie, but even as strong as my family tie was, The tie of the streets was stronger, and that's what we need to realize.
Wow.
We need to realize that. The
Wow.
tie of the street, the pull of the street is even stronger. And if we can get that to work for us, if we can figure out a way, since we know a large percentage of us are going to go there anyway,
Right.
What if we strategically made that work for us? I'm just thinking outside of the box right now, so that we could possibly save some of them instead of the brothers having the mentality, I'm going to be dead by 18 anyway, so I'm going to do what I got to do.
Right.
That's not where we need to be.
Right. You know, we have to get out in the streets, and we have to get out in the streets and be out there for a reason. Hopefully, that reason being whether it be steering a young person in a better direction, or just making sure that our streets are clean, making sure that there's not drugs and alcohol on our streets. You know, we have to do those. That's work that needs to be done. You know what I mean? And can you talk to us a little bit about when did you really, after you finally graduated high school and you realized that college wasn't going to be right for you at that particular time? What did you do next after college?
Well, you know, Sid, let me back up just for a moment, because if we start in college, we're going to miss out a large part of what happened prior to college, and probably the reason why I didn't stay in the first place.
Wow.
I got to go back when I was a sophomore in high school, man. So, you know, I'm somewhere around 16 years old, had never done a drug in my life, had drank a little bit of alcohol, but had never experienced any type of drug. And I know if some of us that may be on here, if you've gone through an NA program or something like that, you're probably saying, well, brother, alcohol is a drug. I understand that. But I'm just talking about for the people that don't know that. Okay, I had not done any drugs yet. And I came outside of an evening event in high school. I'm a sophomore now. And this brother is in the back of a pickup truck, and he's rolling up joints and he's throwing them out. He's just throwing them out to anybody that could catch them. You catch them and you caught it, and you could do whatever you wanted to do with it. I caught one of those joints. Had never done drugs in my life. I did, however, have a boy then, and he had already smoked some weed. So I called him up and I said, hey man, I got this joint. I don't want to smoke it by myself. You want to come over? He came over, we smoked it. Here's point number one. Nothing happened. I was trying, something was trying to protect me right then, but I didn't listen. If I'm talking to anybody out there right now, where you've done something and you didn't get the effect that you thought that you were supposed to get, everybody else got it. You know what that's trying to tell you? You don't need to go any further. Right. I didn't listen. I did not listen. So I said, well, shoot, I didn't feel anything. Let's go buy some. When we went to buy some, that's when I felt it. From that point, just one joint in a pickup truck, one joint. From that point, the next 17 years of my life would be best defined as being a drug addict. If you said, well, man, what did you take? What did you do? I'd go, I ain't got time to talk about that. Let's talk about what I didn't do. Wow. I didn't shoot up, but I didn't say I didn't do heroin. I did basically every drug that you could possibly imagine in doing, and everything that came along with drug addiction, I did. Forget all that middle class stuff that I talked about. If you get really hooked on what I was hooked on, I was smoking crack, I was doing, your $300 a day, $500 a day. That's where this thing ended up. If you let it control you like that, where you came from and what you look like while you're doing it, they ain't gonna look the same.
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Were you a teenager and a drug addict at the same time?
Yes. Yeah, whenever you doing something that you can't control, I don't care how you try to dress it up, you an addict.
Right. So at, let's say 17 years old, you were doing drugs.
Oh yeah, bro. By the
And
time I was 17, and that's why I didn't make it at IU.
now, how would you say that joint, when you went back and you bought more, because that's when you decided to partake in it? How would you say that joint changed your whole perspective? Like, how did you go from just smoking a joint to diving deep into drugs? How did you go from one to the next?
Because the drugs made me feel like the person that I really was, but didn't know that I was really that person. Did you hear that?
Say it
The
again.
drugs made me feel like the person that I was trying to be, that I couldn't be without the feeling of the drug in me. Did you get it that way?
Yeah.
And so, since it was so important, we got to go back to the streets. Here's this guy that's coming from a middle class family. Everybody's smart in the family. How am I going to fit in with the streets? I could see that person, but I never had the courage to be that person until I got the drugs in me. When I got the drugs in me, the person that I saw that I could be, I became that person because I had the drug in me. And that's what I'm talking about with the gravity, with the pull of the streets. It was so strong that I said, in order for me to fit out here, I got to become another person, but I don't know how to become that person. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll smoke this joint. I'll hit this angel dust. I'll smoke this hash. I'll snort this heroin. I'll snort this cocaine.
Right.
I'll smoke this crack.
Right. And so as you partook in what the streets had to offer, you essentially became the streets, and that for you was also a survival mechanism, because you couldn't fit in. You couldn't fit in at home doing drugs constantly, could you?
No. It became, as you said, it became a mechanism. And anything that you know about, if you know anything about addiction, it starts out with, I'd like to feel this way. Then you feel that way, and then you say, I have to feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
First is I like to, but then it becomes I have to. Okay, well, if you were the age that I was, it's not like you can support your drug habit, because you can't. So you either going to end up selling, you're going to end up slinging, or you're going to end up doing all of the other things. You're going to stick somebody up. Fortunately, I never did. But you're going to do some things to get that money, to get that drug. Right. And so that's the path that it took me to. Okay, now fast forward to get back to your question. What was it? What got me out of IU? Well, because I already had the habit. By the time that I got to IU, as luck would have it, I met one of the biggest dealers on campus. Wow. Bro, I don't know how many credit or how many hours that I had, but I can tell you right now, I was going to that one class, Black Films. I went to that one class and got my C average, and then that was it. I was doing drugs all the rest of the time, all day and all night, to the point to where one of my friends that's still alive today, that's still close to me today, that does not live in Cincinnati, one night I had such an experience that I thought, honest to God, I was going to OD. I called that brother about 2:30 in the morning and said, hey, man, you got to stay on the phone with me. Otherwise, I think I'm going to clock out. I'm going to lose it. Wow. I honestly thought that was going to be the last day that I was going to see alive. So I've been to that point in my life to where I didn't even think that I was going to be alive.
You know, I'm glued to my seat right now. And I'm glued to the screen as well. For those viewers out there who are with us tonight, I want to appreciate you. I want you to take a moment to share this stream. Let a friend know that we're having a deep and powerful conversation that fits thousands of us. And stay tuned here. All right, we're going to be right back with more from Leon and how he overcame his addiction and how he overcame the gravity of the streets after this brief message. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by Cedric Riley, sponsored by our good friends over at 4D Healthware. And we're back. That was a brief break, right?
Yeah, that was brief, bro.
Hey, I just want to give people a moment to take a breath and to gather their thoughts, because there could be a lot of people going through situations right now that we don't know about, and this conversation has value in it for them that's going to help pull them through. Young people, middle-aged people, and some older people. And right now, what I would like to get into is whether or not you felt a supportive environment while you were in college that could have helped you to getting yourself straightened up, or was it just one or two friends?
It was probably just one or two friends, but unfortunately, they were not at the time. Neither of them were going to college. So in terms of did I have a support group or a foundation or two or three people that I could have relied on? In terms of people that were really tight with me, no. But since you asked the question that way, man, I'm not going to let myself out that easily, because I don't want to let anybody else out that easily if you're going through right now. Sometimes if you don't have the existing group, you got to find the existing group. Mm-hmm. The question would be, could I have found the existing group? Mm-hmm. The answer would have been yes. But did I want to find the existing group?
Right.
No.
Right.
So I'm not letting you off the hook if you're out there.
Right.
Because we're so easy to say, well, I didn't have the proper people around it. Well, you know what? That possibly could be. As a matter of fact, your family might be so jacked up, you can't even get support out of your own family. You got to find another family.
But
you got to find something.
But let me ask you this, because this was all your own doing, and we know that many of our people out there who might be steeped in drugs or alcohol, however they want to term it, are doing it at their own doing. Were you in love with access to this alternate personality? And is that what kept you doing the drugs? The fact that when you take that hit, you could become this person that's alternate to your reality. Did you enjoy that?
Oh, absolutely. That person right there, I truly admired.
Mm-hmm. Why?
That person right there, because I felt the results of that behavior. I felt what I was putting out, the way that I was carrying myself. I liked the results. I liked the feedback from that person. Mm. The thing of it is, I said early on, the drugs made me become the person that I already was. That's the key. Mm-hmm. The drugs made me become the person that I already was, but didn't have the courage to become that person.
Right. In other words, the drugs provided an artificial shortcut to your higher self. And that higher self at that time was demonic.
There you go, bro. You feeling me now? That's right. Exactly what it was.
Right.
That's exactly what it was.
Right.
The brother that I'm talking to right now on StreamYard or whatever it is that we on, Yard Stream, whatever we on. That brother that I'm looking at right now, that brother that I've only known for about a month or so now, it takes a lot of courage to be you, man. And what I'm saying is, I'm assuming that you like who you are right now. But what if you could see the you that you are right now? What if you could see that you, but you didn't have the courage to be that you? And so in order to be the you that I'm talking to right now, you had to put something in you so that you could talk the way that you're talking.
Right.
That's where I was.
So this is the part where I want to unpack, because I believe that so many of the people in our communities who are doing drugs, the reason why there is a level of uh, perpetuity to it. The reason why they keep doing it over and over, and then they might backslide and do it again and again and again. And, you know, we call that an addictive behavior, but there's also something else in there, which is the fact that you are trying to, you are fascinated with the fact that you could be another person when you put this drug in you. And it might be somebody that you want to be, which is who you are. I mean, you don't shape shift because you're taking drugs. It's still you. But you're like, wow, what was that? And it's that that we chase. And when you talk to people who have wisdom about the situation, what they'll tell you, if they're wise, is that you could be your greater self, but do it without the drugs, and it'll be solid. You won't need a substance to turn it on and turn it off. It'll be you around the clock, which is where you are today. Is that right?
That's right, man. And, you know, I was talking to a sister right when I was in the thick of things. The sister was not my wife, and it was not somebody that I hooked up with either. But the sister knew that I was doing these drugs. She also knew my full potential. And she said to me, and I'll never forget it, she said, you know, those drugs are nothing more than a crutch, don't you? And I denied it. I said, no, it ain't no crutch. This is just something that I like to do. Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you, if there's a pretty good chance that if you are a user, pretty good chance that that drug has become a crutch. It is a way for you to escape. It is a way for you not to face what's really going on. It's a way for you to avoid what's happening in the now. Mm. So you either stay in the past thinking about the good old days, or you thinking about how it's getting ready to be.
Right.
It's already getting ready to be better. That's the only state that I ever talk to you. It's either in the past or, hey, I'm getting ready to be here. Right. Well, what are you doing now? And that's the way it was with me. I was avoiding the now. Right. Once you get off and get clean, and then you man up or woman up and do the thing that you need to do to become that person that you see, but be that person without drugs, that takes courage.
Right.
It takes you being able to fall down and not have a drug to medicate you to feel better. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes that pain, that's what you really needed. You needed to feel the pain so that you could get back up, stand back up, and go after whatever it is that you need to be going after. Mm-hmm. that you deserve because of the person that you are.
Right. Now, had you ever in your life, before you overcame addiction, because that's what's coming next, had you ever given 100% at anything? 100%, all your might. Had you given 100% to anything before you overcame drugs?
No.
Okay. And so a lot of us out there, and you can attest to it, and I can attest to it too, at a certain point in your life, you got to realize, hey, I've been living life. I've never given 100%. I've never given 100%, you know? And what do you say to somebody out there right now who's never given 100% at anything? What do you say to them?
What I say is that you're missing the very best part of your life. There's nothing like coming down. You know, I got fascinated with the high that drugs gave me. There's nothing like experiencing the high that comes from giving 100%. Let me go further in saying that 100% is never perfection. Just in case somebody's out there that goes, well, it's impossible to give 100%. I disagree. You can give 100%. I just don't think that you're going to be perfect. I've not achieved perfection, even in what I do right now. However, just the fact that you gave 100%, you did the best that you could possibly do. You gave the best that you could possibly give. There's nothing like that type of feeling. It's a natural high. It's a high that nobody can take away from you. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say to that.
And so, in other words, you know, what I hear you saying, my brother, is that when we provide deep encouragement to one another, in essence, where we're causing a dopamine effect, is that would you say that?
All right, so bruh, you threw a term on me, and I don't know if all of our viewers understand what dopamine is, but that is true. For those that don't know, dopamine is a natural drug that the mind produces. When you do drugs, what happens is it destroys the body's natural ability to produce dopamine the way that it should. I'm not going to get deep off into the science. And just to let you know, somebody told me when I was finally coming off of drugs, a term that we call recovery. When I was in recovery, somebody told me, hey, it takes about 2 years for you to get your dopamine store back. That's how much drugs distort and destroy your body's natural ability to produce a high of its own without having something to put in it. Mm-hmm. It's a deep statement, man.
So the reason why I said that is because I want to point to the fact that we've got to do a better job of having positive exchanges and positive exposures with one another so that we could feel high off life. Because I think that there's so many people out there who are doing drugs. They don't know what it means to be high off life. They might think that that's a fancy phrase. They don't understand that it's a biochemical reality when we actually begin to love one another and learn about how to love one another in order to produce similar dopamine type of effects.
Absolutely. It's a natural thing. It is a commonplace natural thing. And mm-hmm. You are right. Some people never experience it. And you know what? Unfortunately, some people, we don't even have to be talking about drugs. Some people don't get engaged with the dopamine effect because they don't see how they can be doing better. Right. But it is a natural high when you follow your purpose and what you are supposed to be doing and how you are supposed to be doing it. It produces a natural high. And that's where I am today.
Congratulations, Leon. I want to tell you that you are full of wisdom tonight. The things that you're talking to us about are directly applicable to millions of lives across America. And so I would like to thank you for your time. But I also want to know what role did God and spirituality play in you growing out of your circumstances?
Huge. It was huge. First of all, everybody in my family, I would declare as being very spiritual. Mm-hmm. I would not say that any of us are really religious. I don't want to get into the details of that unless you want me to, but we're all very spiritual. We are all very wise. I would say that probably of all the siblings, all of us could be teachers. I'm a trainer by profession. So what I do is I stand out in front of people and I train them on a product. I could also train them on soft skills. I could do that. I'm so much a trainer, and this has a direct correlation to your question. I'm so much a trainer. I can train on anything. If you give me a salt and pepper shaker, I can train on that. I can train on the shape of a Coke bottle. I can train on anything. I can make you excited to learn about the way a chair is made. Right. And the reason why I'm saying this is because that's a gift. So if you don't mind, I want to at least, before we get out of this thing, I want to leave 4 tips for people. We've talked a little bit about my past. We've talked a little bit about how I got from one point to another. But because we're kind of running short on time, if I could just leave these 4 tips for people, just these 4 tips.
You know, this is how time flies when you're having a good time. You know, it seems like we've only been talking for about 15, 20 minutes, but you know, we've almost consumed an hour because we're talking about a lifetime of change and a commitment to being a new person. And when you're talking about good things such as those, they have a way of bending time and space, man. So, you know, but we've got about 13 minutes, and I want you to take some time to let us know what are those 4 things that we need to take in today.
4 things that got me. So once I came out, I got to tell you something. Just because you come out And we've been talking about drugs, but your situation doesn't have to be drugs. You could be in something that's as bad as drugs. In other words, it's still your prison. It's
Right.
still your bondage. It's still got you chained up to where you can't move like you want to move.
Mhm.
So there's four things that I would ask, that if you're really serious about moving from point A to point B, you write these four things down. Here is the number one most important thing. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Number one, find your gift or talent. Did you hear me? The number one thing that you can do, find your gift or talent. Some people call that purpose. But what I'm asking you to do is I want you to take a look at yourself right now and ask yourself, what am I good at? What do I really like to do that I'm good at? Here's a way of asking. Go ahead, Sid.
I want you to speak to the people that say, I can't find my gift or talent. What do you say to them? Can you help?
I'm so glad that you said that. Here's something that you can tie into. Now, there are some highly technical ways that you can do that. You can Google, what is my gift? You can Google, what is my talent? And you can take tests. And those tests are pretty accurate if you're so far away that you have no idea what you're good at. Most people, though, kind of have an idea in terms of what they're good at. But if you don't know, I would ask you to ask yourself this question: what do I really like to do? And what I have found is I can do this thing pretty good, and I assume that everybody can do it good, but other people have to work at it and I don't. That's a pretty good chance that's your gift. That's your talent. And so, in other words, I could talk. I knew kind of some big words. I had a fascination with words. Now, if you said, well, did you know that you were a trainer back then? No, I just knew that I could talk. But then I kept saying, well, how can talking make money? And in the environment that I was in, my environment suggested, well, you could be a trainer. Well, I had started teaching in other areas anyway, like in church, Sunday school. I want to make this so plain. You go, you mean Sunday school got you successful? Yeah, Sunday school got me successful because it put me out into a group of people where I knew, you know what? One of the top 3 fears of human beings is to talk in front of people, but I can do it. Maybe I can make some money in this thing. That's where Sunday school got me. So, number one thing, find your gift or a talent. Said, I hope I was exact enough for you there.
Perfect.
Okay. Number 2, what would I do if money were no concern? I love what I do so much. I can't even get with a person that don't like to go to work. A person that's been going to work for 10 years and don't like what they do. You know what I say? You probably need to try to find a different career. You're probably 100% not even working in your field. That's how bad the brain is. The brain, the human mind is so bad. You can make money and be good at something, check this out, and don't even like it.
Right.
You can be good at something and don't even like it. I'm not one of them people. I'm good at what I do and like it. You know why?
Why?
Because I work with my gift or talent. Life is too short to be working for somebody that you probably don't like anyway, doing a job that you don't like just to bring home a paycheck.
So for those members of our community out there right now who feel stuck in a job that's not making them happy, what can we say to them tonight that can help them to change their life?
Don't be afraid to take a risk and change up everything that you do.
Wow.
You got some seniority at a company, but you're miserable. And you're making other people miserable too, because you're miserable. You ain't talking to people because you're miserable. Is it worth it then? Life's too short. Find out what your gift or your talent is. Connect that with, would I do this thing even without getting paid? If the answer is yes, that's the thing that you need to go after.
Okay.
I leave my job now. I ain't worried about it. I'm going to another one, or I'm going to just teach on my own. I'm going to train on my own. There's something, if we got any Bible readers out there, there's something that says in the Bible, your gift will make room for you.
That's
your
right.
gift will make room. It will seat you in high places. You know what your gift is? It'll open doors that you didn't even see. It'll put you in the presence of people that can really help you because you were working with your gift and or your talent.
Right. Okay.
Point number 3.
Mm-hmm.
If the opportunity has not presented itself yet, attempt to create it. If the opportunity hasn't presented itself yet, attempt to create it. Man, if I had time, I would tell you how I got to the place where I am right now. It was a position that wasn't even heard of yet. And I walked into my supervisor's office and said, I need a $7,000 raise. They said, why? I said, I just do. They said, well, in order for us to give you the $7,000 raise, you have to do this. You have to be operating on this level, in this position. I said, well, let me have that position. Mm-hmm. They said, we got to go to HR. I said, are you willing to go to HR? They said, we don't know. That's how the conversation started. There was no forethought. Sometimes you can just have a divine inspirational thought that you need to really follow up. Follow that thought. The opportunity was not even there yet. They weren't even thinking about moving in this direction. I presented the opportunity to them. They said, yeah, I think we need that. I got the money. Incidentally, it was more than a $7,000 raise, but we ain't got time to talk about that. Yeah. Okay, so if the opportunity hasn't presented itself yet, attempt to create it. Final thought. Don't be afraid to be a little crazy. Don't be afraid to be a little crazy. Now, some of you may be saying, well, what's crazy? What does that mean? Define it for me. It may mean that you need to be a little humorous. When other people that did this thing that you see had always presented it seriously, maybe what you need to do is be humorous if that's your thing. That's why you got to know your gift. If other people have been rigid and caused tension when they did this thing, maybe what you need to do is go in and create a sense of ease. Mm-hmm. Because you are gifted to do that. That's why you got to know your gift or your talent. And so you've got to be a little bit different. But when I say crazy, I really do mean crazy. There's a thing that I do in my training session right now that's called FETCH. FETCH is an acronym to describe a product that we use, the product that we sell. That system that I created has become so noteworthy that other connected businesses in our industry use that acronym, something that I actually created. It's a crazy thing. If you saw it in real life, I mean, I got people hollering in the room, I'm going to go fetch a door. People will laugh, but they never forget. If they see me 2 or 3 years later, they go, Leon, I still remember fetch. I still remember it. That's because I was a little crazy. Right. Don't be afraid to be a little bit crazy, because that may kick the door open that was once just cracked.
Leon, where can people find you if they would like to follow up with you after today's conversation? Because you're obviously somebody who could coach others along. You're obviously somebody who could be a great business consultant, well, who already is a great business consultant. And if somebody wants to find you out there, how could they do that?
Hey, man, leon.starks at facebook.com. That's the easiest way to find me. You can probably find me on Lion of Judah Lion of Judah, Cincinnati, Ohio. Just Google that. It'll connect you up to a website. It'll take you to a Facebook page, but make sure it's, that's Starks. That's Tarks. Starks.
Okay.
You look me up and you'll find me. You'll see some clips that I've done. You'll see some interesting things that we have done as a church as well.
Okay. Now, as we wrap up, we have 3 questions that we ask all our guests. I ask that you answer them within 1 minute and 10 seconds. Okay.
All right, man. Let's roll.
First question is, what is survival to you?
Survival means that you have finally come to a point to where you're leaning on nothing else but pure creativity. Mm-hmm. Logic has been thrown out the window.
Right.
And so it's creativity and you're being strategic. That's right. What survival is.
Without a doubt. And what is success to you?
Success is when you can go to bed and sleep, not having anything over your head, looking at what you've accomplished, perhaps for the day, the week, the month, or whatever. And you know what? Here's a big thing of success: real time. Real time, meaning I'm not even tripping over the past. And I'm not always wanting something in the future. Mm-hmm. I'm so successful that right now, in the moment, I still appreciate the current house that I have. I still appreciate the current car that I have. Did I go over 1 minute 10?
No, we're doing good. We're doing good because success is being in the present as well as the future, so that you can pull yourself along in life. That's
there. You go. Okay. There you go.
What is greatness?
Greatness is when you display your true gifts and talents in the most beneficial way that brings you back a return on your investment.
Wow. Phenomenal answers. I think you need to I'd love to have you back here. Maybe I could bring you back maybe every month and a half or something like that, and just be a stop-in guest and just provide some wisdom for us, if that's okay.
Hey man, if your audience can flow with me, then I have no problem flowing with you.
Listen. I want to give you a crown tonight. I want to let you know that I appreciate the work that you've done. I appreciate the story that you've just told about how you overcame more than a decade of an attack on you by yourself, amongst other things. You overcame that. I want to respect that, and I want to commend you for it. And I want to give you roses while you're still here and let you know that I admire your journey. And I really appreciated this conversation today. I'm thankful that you were able to speak to our viewership and provide some of your wisdom, because it's not every day that people survive drug addiction. It's not every day that people are able to continue to stand up for their family and for their communities. And it's not every day that we get generations of our people to speak out. Like you said, people are afraid to speak. It's a human fear, but you get out in front of it and you communicate very effectively. So I want to thank you today, and I'd love to work with you in the future. All right.
All right, Sid. Hey, thanks for having me, brother.
Without a doubt. That's all we have for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow right here on America's Next Motivator. Bye-bye.